I sat in the courtroom, watching the man I built a life with for 17 years finalize our divorce so he could marry a billionaire's daughter. His mother leaned toward me and whispered, "We're finally cleansing our family tree." Her words stung more than the divorce itself. 6 months earlier, Kaylin had handed me the papers with a proud smile, acting as if ending our marriage was a simple business decision. For years, his family had called me a social climber, ignoring the fact that I earned my Yale law degree on my own. Now he was racing toward Bianca Sterling, the woman they believed matched their status. I signed the papers without a tear, not because I wasn't hurting, but because I knew something none of them expected. While Kaylin celebrated at the plaza with his new fiancée, I was sitting in a quiet diner in Vermont across from a woman who carried a truth powerful enough to destroy the Vance legacy from the inside. She introduced herself as Rhonda Gallagher. I didn't know her name, but she knew mine. Her voice was steady as she pushed a small envelope toward me. "Your father-in-law wanted you to have this when the moment came," she said. Inside that envelope was a secret the Vance family had hidden for decades. As Rhonda explained the truth, everything I had endured suddenly made sense. The cold dinners, the cruel comments, the way they treated me like I never belonged. They thought I was beneath them. They thought they were untouchable. But they had no idea how close their empire was to collapsing. My name is Jessa Prescott, and the birth certificate inside that envelope would soon shift a $700 million empire into the hands of the woman they erased from their story. They believed they were cleansing their family tree. They had no idea I was about to show them the branch they tried hardest to hide. For years, those family dinners felt like walking into a place where I didn't belong. Every Sunday, we sat at the long table in the Newport estate, and I always felt invisible. Cordelia, my mother-in-law, treated those dinners like they were some grand tradition. But for me, they were reminders that I was never truly accepted. One evening stands out clearly. Cordelia brought Bianca to the table for the first time. She smiled proudly and introduced her as if she were a gift to the family. "This is Bianca," she said softly, Stanford MBA, a bright mind for our company. Everyone nodded and welcomed her warmly. Then her eyes moved to me. Her whole tone changed. "And that's Jessa, Kaylin's wife." She paused on purpose, letting the weight of that hesitation fall on me. It was a small moment, but it felt louder than anything else in the room. Even the dog beside me seemed to be placed more kindly than I was, as if my seat had been chosen just to remind me of my place. Kaylin didn't defend me. He didn't even look in my direction. His attention stayed on Bianca the entire evening. He laughed at her stories, praised her ideas, and followed every word she said. I sat quietly, watching the man I loved treat someone else like the woman he wished he had married. In that moment, I understood exactly what was happening. They weren't hiding it anymore. They were slowly pushing me out of their world, acting as if I had never been part of it. That dinner told me everything I needed to know. I was no longer seen as family. I was being erased piece by piece, right in front of my own husband. I worked for 4 long months on a huge business deal for the company. I handled every meeting, every document, every late-night call. I knew the deal would make Vance Industries stronger than ever, and I was proud of the work I had done. I thought, just for a moment, that maybe this achievement would finally make them see my value. But on the day the contract was signed, everything changed. Kaylin stood at the head of the boardroom table with a confident smile. He spoke about the deal as if he had done all the work himself. He praised his own leadership, his strategy, and his vision. The board members clapped for him. No one even glanced in my direction. Then his brother, the COO, laughed and said, "Guess Jessa is good for something after all." The room chuckled like it was a harmless joke, but it landed like a blow. They saw my hard work as something Kaylin owned, not something I earned. After the meeting, I went to Kaylin's office. I asked him why he took all the credit. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look guilty. He simply said, "A Vance wife's success belongs to her husband. That's how my mother lived, and that's how it works here." His words were cold and sure, as if this was completely normal. I walked out of his office without another word. I didn't scream or cry. I didn't try to argue. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made the call I should have made long ago, a secret call to a divorce attorney. That moment, standing alone in the hallway, I realized something important. I had given everything to a man who believed I was nothing. And that was the day I quietly began planning my way out. Kaylin called me into his study with a cold, serious look on his face. He didn't ask me to sit. He simply pushed a stack of papers across his desk and said, "Sign this." I looked down and saw the divorce papers. He spoke as if it was just another business task. "If you try to fight me," he added, "you'll lose everything. Even the kids." His voice was steady, like he had already decided my future without me. I picked up the papers and read through them quickly. My heart sank. He had already moved every asset, our home, our savings, even investments, into family trusts. Nothing was in my name anymore. He had planned this quietly and carefully, making sure I would have no power to argue. The pressure didn't stop there. My own law firm had warned me that keeping the Vance family happy was more important than protecting me. They hinted that if I upset Kaylin, I could lose my job. I realized I had nowhere to turn. Everywhere I looked, the walls were closing in. Kaylin leaned back in his chair with a proud, confident smile. "Sign by 5 p.m. tomorrow," he said. "If you don't, I'll file for full custody. I'll say you're unstable and unfit. No one will doubt me." He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. His calmness made the threat even worse. I felt my hands shake, but I didn't let him see the fear. I just nodded and walked out of the study, carrying the papers that were supposed to destroy my life. The cruelty wasn't in the words. It was in the way he delivered them, as if I no longer mattered. In that moment, I knew he believed he had complete control over me. He thought he had trapped me from every side. But he didn't know that I had already taken the first quiet step toward escaping him forever. The hardest moment came from someone I never expected, my own daughter, Hannah. She stood in front of me with teary eyes, confused and hurt. "Mom, why won't you just let Dad be happy?" she asked. Her voice shook, and I could see she had been crying long before she came to me. Then she added the words that cut the deepest. "Grandma Cordelia says you're being difficult, and that you never really loved us enough." It felt like the ground shifted under me. Hannah wasn't cruel. She was repeating what she had been told. Someone had filled her mind with lies, twisting her trust in me. I knew then that Kaylin and his mother had gone further than I imagined. They didn't just want me out of their world. They wanted my children to see me as the problem. They were using the two people I loved most as tools to break me. I tried to explain gently to Hannah, but she was too upset to hear anything. She pulled away when I reached for her hand. The distance hurt more than any threat, any insult, any fight. When she walked out of the room, closing the door behind her, the silence that followed felt heavier than ever. Later that night, I sat alone in the house that no longer felt like home. The rooms were quiet, cold, and filled with memories that suddenly felt painful instead of comforting. I let myself cry for the first time in a long while. Not because of the divorce, not because of Kaylin's threats, but because my own child believed I didn't love her. But after the tears, something inside me changed. The hurt slowly turned into determination. If they thought they could break me through my children, they were wrong. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and made myself a quiet promise. I would fight, not with anger, not with revenge, but with strength. I would protect my children, even if they didn't understand yet. And I would not let anyone rewrite the truth of who I was as a mother. I sat at the kitchen table with the divorce papers in front of me, the same papers Kaylin expected me to sign without a fight. I kept reading the lines over and over, feeling the weight of everything he had done. My hands were tired, my heart even more. I didn't know what my next step would be. I only knew I couldn't give him the easy victory he wanted. Then my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, a Vermont area code. For a moment, I almost ignored it, thinking it might be another call from his lawyer or someone trying to pressure me. But something made me answer. A calm, gentle voice spoke. "Mrs. Vance? My name is Rhonda Gallagher." I had never heard the name before. She continued softly. "I was your father-in-law's private nurse." Hearing William's name surprised me. He had always been kind to me, very different from the rest of the family. Before I could ask why she was calling, Rhonda added, "There is something he wanted you to know. Something he didn't want revealed until the right moment." Her tone was serious, almost protective, like she understood what I was going through. She explained that William had left a safety deposit box in Boston, and that the box was meant for me, only me. My heart started beating faster. I didn't know what could possibly be inside, or why he would trust me with something so secret. Before I could ask more, Rhonda said she had already arranged everything. "You'll receive a key shortly. Please follow his instructions. He believed you would know what to do." An hour later, a courier arrived at my door with a small sealed envelope. Inside was a single key with a tag that had my name handwritten on it. For the first time in months, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear. Not pain. Hope. Whatever William left for me, I knew it was important. And I knew it might be the thing that would finally change everything. I drove to the bank in Boston with the small key in my hand, unsure of what I was about to find. The room was quiet as the banker brought out a metal box and placed it in front of me. My fingers shook slightly as I opened it. Inside were only two things: a sealed legal envelope and a thin handwritten journal with William's name on the first page. I opened the journal first. William's handwriting was careful and steady. As I read, my breath caught in my throat. He wrote about a time many years ago, when Cordelia had spent several months overseas. During that period, he had a short relationship with another woman. He admitted it wasn't planned and that it left him with deep guilt. But what he didn't expect was the result: a baby boy. He wrote about his fear of the truth getting out. Cordelia held the family's reputation above everything. News of an affair would have destroyed the life she worked so hard to build. So they made a decision that would shape their entire future. The baby would be adopted through a private arrangement and brought into their home as if Cordelia had given birth to him. They would raise him as the official heir of the Vance family. That baby was Kaylin. I had to stop reading for a moment. My mind felt full, and yet everything suddenly made sense: the coldness, the pressure, the obsession with image. They had built their whole identity on a lie. When I finally opened the sealed legal envelope, I found a formal document prepared by William. It was a supplementary will, written in clear, careful language. It stated that if Kaylin's marriage ever ended, the controlling shares of Vance Industries would no longer stay with the Vance family. Instead, they would be given to the child's biological mother, Rhonda Gallagher, the same woman who had called me. William had signed everything years earlier, long before the stress of illness weakened him. The document was lawful, complete, and designed with one purpose: to protect the truth and ensure the company didn't fall into the wrong hands. I sat there in the tiny bank room with the box open in front of me, the papers resting on my lap. My heart was pounding, but I felt an unexpected calm. William hadn't trusted his own family with the truth. He had trusted me. I closed the box slowly and held the key tightly. For the first time, I saw a path forward, one I never knew existed. I went straight to the office of the lawyer named in William's will, Sterling Thorne. The building was quiet and serious, the kind of place where important decisions were made behind closed doors. My hands held the documents tightly as I stepped inside, filled with a mix of nervousness and hope. Thorne greeted me with a calm nod, his eyes sharp as if he already knew why I was there. I handed him the sealed envelope and the journal. He opened them carefully, scanning each page with focus. Then he looked up. "These are all in order," he said. "Everything is legal, ironclad, and has been kept completely secret for 18 years. His voice carried weight. It was clear he was not exaggerating. I asked if it was really possible that a single clause could shift control of Vance Industries to someone outside the family. Thorne nodded. William knew his son's character, he explained. He knew the kind of man Kaylin would be, and how far the family would go to protect its image. That's why he left these documents with precise instructions. He trusted that, when the right time came, you would do what was necessary to make it work. A shiver ran through me. The trust William had placed in me was overwhelming, but it also made the path clear. Thorne went through every detail, explaining how the clause in the will would activate once the divorce was finalized. Until that moment, no one would suspect anything. Everything had to be done quietly and perfectly. As he spoke, I understood how carefully William had thought of everything. This wasn't just a legal move. It was a safeguard against the greed and deceit that had always ruled the Vance family. He had created a way to protect the truth and give me the power to set things right. By the time I left Thorne's office, the plan was clear. I would wait for the divorce to be finalized and then act. For the first time since Kaylin betrayed me, I felt in control. The next move was mine, and I was ready to make it count. The divorce was finally over. Kaylin had what he wanted, or at least he thought he did. A week later, Vance Industries held its annual gala, the kind of event where the powerful gathered to celebrate success and wealth. The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, polished floors, and people dressed in their finest clothes. Everywhere I looked, there were smiles, laughter, and the kind of confidence that comes from believing you are untouchable. Kaylin and Bianca were at the center of it all. They held themselves like royalty, moving through the crowd, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, and soaking in every compliment. Cordelia was beside them, radiant and proud. When she spoke, her voice carried through the room. She gave a long speech about restoring the family's pure legacy, praising Bianca as the woman who would lead the company into a bright, untarnished future. Everyone clapped, some standing, some whispering admiration, and Kaylin's chest swelled with pride. I stood at the back of the ballroom, keeping to the shadows. No one noticed me. I wasn't meant to be there. I could have walked in with anger, yelling, or trying to prove something in front of the crowd, but that wasn't my plan. I didn't need to make a scene. Their smiles, their applause, their confidence, it all looked so satisfying from their point of view. They believed they had won, that I had lost everything. As I watched them, I felt a quiet satisfaction of my own. I didn't need the applause or the recognition. I didn't need to fight in front of the crowd. The documents in my possession, the legal protections William had left, and the careful plan with my lawyer meant the real victory wasn't visible yet. The clock was already ticking, and their moment of triumph was only temporary. I observed quietly, letting them enjoy their false sense of security. Every handshake, every congratulatory word, every proud look on their faces was part of a stage they thought I would never step onto again. But the truth had been waiting. When the time came, it wouldn't matter how many people were clapping. They would see how wrong they were. For now, I stayed in the shadows, watching, waiting, and knowing that what they thought was the end was actually the beginning. Their victory was hollow, and soon it would crumble. The morning after the gala, I arrived at Vance Industries with Sterling Thorne. The boardroom doors were open, and an emergency meeting was already underway. Everyone looked serious, the kind of tension that comes when something has gone wrong, though they didn't know what. I walked in quietly beside Thorne, holding myself steady. Kaylin's face went pale the moment he saw me. His confidence from the night before vanished instantly. His shoulders slumped slightly, and the smile that had been so easy to wear at the gala disappeared. He stared at me like he had never seen me before, confusion and fear mingling in his eyes. Cordelia's reaction was sharp and immediate. She leaned forward, her face twisted with irritation and disbelief. "What is she doing here?" she snapped, her voice cutting across the room. The board members looked between us nervously, unsure what was happening. Thorne placed the documents carefully on the table. He looked at the board and then at me, his expression calm and certain. "As of the finalization of the divorce yesterday," he said, his voice steady and commanding, "Mrs. Rhonda Gallagher is now the majority shareholder of Vance Industries. She has granted power of attorney to Jessa Prescott." For a moment, the room was frozen. The hum of conversation stopped. Pens hovered over papers. Eyes widened. Kaylin's mouth opened, but no words came out. Cordelia's sneer froze into shock, her face betraying the panic she was trying to hide. The silence was absolute, heavy with the weight of realization. I felt a quiet satisfaction as I stood there. The control they had believed they held over the company, over me, and over the board was gone. Every plan they had made, every insult, every attempt to push me aside, it all meant nothing now. I was no longer powerless. Sterling Thorne continued, explaining the details of the transfer, the legality of the documents, and the power I now held on behalf of Rhonda. Each sentence struck like a hammer, breaking the walls of confidence that Kaylin and Cordelia had built for themselves over decades. The board members murmured in disbelief, glancing at each other, realizing the magnitude of the change. Kaylin tried to speak again, but his voice was small, uncertain. Cordelia's anger flared, but she knew there was no arguing against what was legally binding. Standing there, I felt the weight of everything that had happened. Years of betrayal, humiliation, and manipulation. But it was replaced with clarity and control. The reckoning had come, and it was complete. The empire they had thought was untouchable was no longer theirs, and the truth, finally, had been restored. I looked around the boardroom at the shocked faces of the directors and executives. Every eye was fixed on me, some wide with disbelief, others narrowing in suspicion. The air was thick and tense, filled with the kind of fear that comes when people realize that everything they believe to be stable is about to collapse. For years, Kaylin and Cordelia had held control over Vance Industries, acting as if their word was law and their family name untouchable. Now that illusion was gone. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm and steady. "My first act as representative," I said, letting the words hang in the room for effect, "is to remove Kaylin Vance and Cordelia Vance from the board and all executive positions for gross misconduct and misrepresentation of family lineage." The room erupted. Papers shuffled, chairs creaked, and people whispered loudly, some in disbelief, some in panic. Kaylin tried to speak, to argue, but every time he opened his mouth, Sterling Thorne's calm presence reminded everyone that this wasn't a discussion. It was legally binding. The control they thought they had was gone, replaced by the law and the will of William, enforced through Rhonda's power and my position as her representative. I watched as color drained from Kalen's face. His proud posture crumpled into disbelief and fear. Cordelia's sneer twisted into something unrecognizable. Anger, panic, and shame all rolled into one. The board members shifted uncomfortably, realizing that the empire they had followed faithfully for decades no longer belonged to the people they had trusted. Every decision Kalen had made, every plan he had executed to humiliate or control me, was meaningless now. This was more than just a legal victory. It was a personal triumph. The man who had betrayed me, who had taken my marriage, my reputation, and my dignity for granted, was now powerless. Kalen was no longer a Vance by blood, and the empire he had thought secure was completely out of his hands. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of control in my own hands, not for revenge, but for justice and truth. The chaos in the room was exactly what I had imagined in my dreams. Whispers turned to murmurs of shock. Some board members stared at each other, trying to process the reality. Others quickly turned their attention to me, understanding that the direction of the company had changed overnight. I felt a quiet sense of satisfaction as I stood there, fully aware of what this moment represented. Years of betrayal, manipulation, and humiliation had led to this point. Kalen and Cordelia could no longer control the company, the family name, or the narrative they had spent decades constructing. For the first time, the truth was visible to everyone, and the power I had been denied for so long was finally in my hands. This was not just a victory for me. It was a complete turning of the tables. The empire, the influence, and the respect that Kalen and Cordelia had assumed were theirs forever had shifted, and there was nothing they could do to take it back. I had reclaimed what was right, and justice had finally been served. After everything had settled, I made a decision that surprised many, including myself. I didn't keep control of Vance Industries. The company had been a battlefield full of lies, greed, and betrayal. Holding on to it would have meant constantly facing Kalen, Cordelia, and the shadow of all the pain they caused me. Instead, Rhonda and I decided to liquidate our shares. We turned the wealth into something meaningful, a foundation dedicated to helping women rebuild their lives after divorce. I wanted it to be a place where women could find support, strength, and hope, a way to transform hurt into power. The process took time, but I felt lighter with every step. I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was creating something lasting. Every plan, every carefully thought-out move had led to this, a chance to do something truly good, not just for myself, but for others who had faced betrayal and injustice. It felt like I was finally free from the chains that Kalen and his family had tried to place on me. When my children, Hannah and Liam, learned the truth about everything, how their father and grandmother had manipulated them, lied to them, and tried to turn them against me, they were shocked. They came back to me, looking for answers, apologies, and guidance. I held them close, and for the first time in years, our family felt whole again. We talked, we cried, and we slowly rebuilt the trust that had been broken. Kalen and Cordelia were left with nothing but their names and their shame. The empire, the reputation, and the influence they had clung to so tightly were gone. The billionaire's daughter, Bianca, called off her engagement to Kalen once the truth came out. His world had crumbled, and there was no one left to prop it up for him. I had lost a husband, yes, but I had gained so much more. I had my dignity, my freedom, and a chance to redefine my life on my own terms. I had discovered my strength, my voice, and my ability to create something positive out of everything that had tried to destroy me. In the end, the greatest victory wasn't the downfall of Kalen and Cordelia. It wasn't even the money or power that came from the shares. It was me finding myself, reclaiming my life, and turning pain into purpose. I had finally won, not through anger or revenge, but through courage, patience, and the determination to live my truth. The past was behind me, and a new beginning stretched ahead, full of hope and possibility.